Hello, everyone. So I see that a lot of people are well on time for this. Yeah, let's get into it. So just a very quick sound check and thingy check, visual check. Right now, I'm hoping you can see me, you can hear me, and you can see the slide here. Let's see. Yes, hello. Thank you for the welcome messages. Hello and welcome to the stream. That's great to see. So the chat is working. That's good. That's a good start. And I'm getting some thumbs up from David. That's very good. Okay, great. So let's jump right in. So we are talking about building a course business. For those of you who are familiar with what I've, with my work, basically, I have done loads and loads of different businesses over the last, 12 years or so. And for sure, the online course business is like one of my favorite. I have, the first time I launched an online course, I think was like 20, what am I saying? 2010, I think, 2009 or 2010 or something like that. And I've done many, many courses over the years at different scales, and it's basically always been one of my favorite business models. Now, today, I hope you've seen the 3 videos I released where I talk about some of the things on how to price your course, how to launch a course, this kind of stuff. Today, I want to answer questions about this. And what I've done is, from the comments on the previous videos, I have collected some. This doesn't look right. I've collected some questions. Let me just go after this again. Hold on a second. That is not what we want. How about this? So I've collected some questions from the different videos, comments, and so on, and I'll go through some of the ones that I think are the most applicable and kind of the most important ones. And then we'll also have time for live questions. So you'll also be able to just post questions in the chat, and I'll be able to respond to those. So let's get started. One of the ones I want to get started with here is a question about competition. And I think this is important for course creators, but it's important basically for anyone who does any online business, or any business actually, which is the question of competition. So the question here is, as a course creator, like, isn't it a problem that we have Udemy and they're selling on basically any topic you can imagine? They're selling courses. Almost all the courses on Udemy are basically $10. So they're basically selling, bottom of the barrel pricing for anything, right? And isn't that a problem as a course creator? Because, okay, if you sell your own course for $10, you have to sell tons of them to make any decent income. But then if you sell your own course for like $200, like I suggested, then isn't that a problem? Because people can just buy the same thing cheaply, right? So here's how I think of this. So first of all, in general, don't fear the competition, right? So in general, no matter what business you're in, there's always going to be competitors. And in a busy marketplace, in a busy market, there's always going to be like this stratification of prices where, someone's doing the super luxury version of the product that's very, very expensive. Someone's doing the ultra budget, as cheap as possible version of the product. It's very cheap. And then there's everything in between. And generally, these things always can live side by side, right? So, if you think about, if you think about cars, Mercedes-Benz aren't worried that Toyota is out here selling cheap cars. They're like, that's fine. There's a market here for cheap cars, and that's what they're doing. And there's a market for expensive luxury cars. That's what we're doing. And the same, obviously, any industry in the world, you can see this happen. there's always going to be participants in the marketplace that are engaged in a race to the bottom, where you go, hey, I'm just going to try to underprice my competition, and that's how I'm going to try to get customers. I recommend that you do not participate in races to the bottom. Okay, races to the bottom are really bad, because the only way you can win is by having massive scale, right? If you end up selling your product for $1, then you just need to be able to reach tens of thousands, ideally hundreds of thousands or even millions of people in order to make a decent amount of income. That's not a good situation to be in. So it is, and this is also why the pricing sweet spot is as it is, right? I talked about how the ideal price for an online course is generally around $200, because that means you don't have to reach that many people in order to make a good living. And yeah, think of it like that, right? There's all this market activity, and in fact, competition is good. If you see loads and loads of people buying a course in your niche on Udemy for $10, that's a great sign. You can come in and make a higher quality course, a better produced, better marketed course that just offers greater value in terms of helping people reach an outcome. And you know that there's all this activity of people who are already buying this. I can also tell you, like, from the buyer side, like, I've looked at Udemy as a place to do competition research, and I have bought Udemy courses as well to find out, what are my competitors doing here? What are they selling? These courses are generally not good, because, like, why would they be? Like, if you're like a top 1% seller on Udemy, you're making a good living, but everyone else is not getting paid for their work very well, right? Because you sell your course for $10, you're not even building your own mailing list. Udemy keeps like 55% or something, so you're actually making like $5 per sale or less. And you can't even do much of your own marketing, right? You can't have like your own website. So when people find your course, they always see like other courses advertised as well. It's like there's so many things stacked against you as a course creator that unless you are lucky enough to be like the top seller in your category, and it's a busy category, you're basically broke. And so it's not a good deal for course creators. And so most course creators like churn out lots and lots of courses to try and make up for it. And so most of these courses are not very high quality. So you might have a lot of people in your niche, they bought a couple of Udemy courses, they go, well, this is rubbish, I need more, I need something better. And they're happy to give you more money for something better. So that's something to keep in mind. And in general, lots of activity, lots of business activity is generally a good thing. Buyers in a market are an opportunity. All right. So another question that got posted, here's 2 examples of this, but this is probably the most commonly asked question, is what if I don't have an audience? Okay, what if I don't already, I'm starting out, like Tom says here, right? I'm starting out, I don't have a list yet. How can I sell my course while at the same time building my list? I got this question many, many times in different variations. And this is a great question. I think this is also very well posed here, the question by Tom. Like, how can I sell my course and build my list at the same time if I don't have a list yet? So let's get into this. There is a bit of a chicken and egg problem here. Because of course, the product launch that I showed as well is a launch that you do to a mailing list, right? You do this launch to a mailing list. And if you don't have a mailing list, then what do you do? That's the one side of the problem. The other side of the problem is that one of the best ways to build an audience is to have a good product. And this is why I love the course business so much. I discovered this, and I'm so glad I discovered this many years ago. I was doing content marketing, I was doing blogging, doing all kinds of stuff, and my audience was growing very, very slowly. And the first time I sold a product, which was an online course, and I put a lot of effort into making it a high quality product, that's when my audience rocketed upwards. And from then on, like obviously I had customers, but also I was suddenly in my market. I was suddenly a more legitimate authority and presence in my market. So I also got more just free traffic, essentially. I got more traffic to my blog posts. I got more traffic to everything I did all of a sudden. So it was kind of a snowball effect. And this is the chicken and egg problem, because of course, if you have no audience, then you can't just launch a product to no one and hope that that something happens. But on the other hand, if you tell yourself, I have to build a huge audience first, you could get stuck there forever. And maybe the easiest way to build a larger audience is to sell a product. But how do we do this? Can we solve this problem? Here's the thing. There is a shortcut to this, which is to have a great product and sell it to other people's audience. And I have done this, and I have been on both sides of this equation. So let me explain two things about this. Two things about this are, first of all, you don't need a huge audience to get started. Okay, if you have a mailing list of like 100 people, you can do a product launch, and that's enough to get the ball rolling. You're not going to get rich off of it right away, right? But out of 100 people, if you have like this small but engaged audience of people, you can get started, you can get that ball rolling. And so the mistake is to think that, I have to get like thousands of people or something like that. That's really not the case. But the second thing is, if you don't have your own audience, you have to get in front of someone else's audience, and you can do that. I'm not going to pretend like that's easy, but you can do that. If you have the ability to make good products, you can partner up with people who are, bloggers or influencers or content creators who have an audience but don't have a product yet. And if you're starting from scratch, you're generally looking for someone, don't look for like the massive celebrity in your niche, right? The biggest influencer in your niche. Like, they're going to get 1,000 requests a day for partnerships and things like that. Like, look for someone who's only a few steps ahead of you. And if you can come to them and basically, you have to do a bit of networking. You don't want to contact someone and right away ask them for stuff, right? Hey, we should partner. I can make a product. Give me, I want to send this to your mailing list. Like, that's not going to work. So you do have to do a bit of networking. You have to have a bit of finesse there, but you can start making connections with creators and influencers and whatnot in your niche. And you can look for opportunities where you can basically say, listen, I can make a great product and I can launch this product, but I don't have an audience yet. Let's team up and let's do this together for your audience, and we'll split the profits. And this is something, like I said, I've done this. This is how I launched my very first product. I've also done this even just to build my audience. I've done things like created content for other people's audience or other people's membership or something like that, just in order to get my stuff in front of more people. But I basically found people to work with and to partner with where I could promote my stuff to their audience. And I have done this for many businesses in some form as a way to kickstart it, right? I've also been on the other side of this deal where someone else has a product, but they don't have an audience, and they go, hey, this is a great product, and I have an audience. Let's partner up and sell this to my audience. And so I'm telling you this because if this is a good deal, this is a good deal for both partners, right? The problem is you have to really be able to bring a good deal to the table. So you have to be able to demonstrate that you know what you're doing, or that you can bring real value, and you're not just asking to like leech off of someone else's audience, right? So that's why I'm saying it's not easy to do, but that's the approach I used in order to basically place my product in front of other people's audience. So yeah, that's how I would approach this nowadays as well. All right, next question. This is an interesting question about pricing. So I recommend in general a $200 price point for an online course, and there's a whole video about why that is. For some reason, okay. Yeah, so $200, depending on where in the world you are, can be more or less, right? So first of all, like, part of this is, of course, that the $200 are it's kind of a ballpark figure, right? It's a nice round number, but it's not like, it's not like $199 is too little and the $201 is too much. So it is a ballpark figure. And you can think of this in terms of purchasing power. So one way to think of this is, let's grab this here. You can think of it, yeah, like I said, in terms of like, here we go. Let me put this on screen here. This is a price index, global price index of a Big Mac, right? And you've maybe heard that, oh, it's not showing me this. Maybe it's not letting me view this because I haven't paid the money. That's too bad. Okay. I think you can see this. I'd probably have to open this in a private window here for them to let me see this. But you can basically look at like the price of, a Big Mac in different locations. And, this is kind of the Big Mac index as one of the ways to estimate like the purchasing power of money in different places, right? And you can basically look at that and say, okay, well, a Big Mac is how many Big Macs fit into $200, right? And if it's, I'm not sure what it is, but let's say it's like 15 times the price of a Big Mac or something. That's what you could use. You could look at, if your customers are in a different country, you could look at what does a Big Mac cost here. It's about 15 times that price. But even there, right, this is essentially it's always just a ballpark figure, right? And it's true that it definitely depends on purchasing power that people have. And that's going to be different in different places. That's absolutely true. You can also think of it, I mean, like I said, it is like a ballpark, right? So you can think of it in terms of, how much, like if someone, another way to think of it is like $200 could be like, how much is someone going to spend if they go out to buy a bunch of clothes? They might end up spending about $200, even if they're not like massively rich, right? It's like a couple of pairs of jeans, a jacket, that's probably like $200-ish. You can think of it like that, right? Because it's the kind of money that non-wealthy people, it's not like something they spend just without thinking about it, but it's the kind of money that non-wealthy people can afford for something that's important enough for them. So that's one of the ways to think of it, right? If we're like basically talking about a American audience, then, or a European audience, pretty similar, then you can think like, something like $5, $10 is a don't even think about it purchase, right? If I want something that's less than $10, you just spend it, right? For most people. Most people spend that kind of money on stuff that is really not that important. On the other end of the spectrum, like $1,000, let's say, is something, again, in an American or European audience, like most people can afford that, but they'll think a lot. They'll be very hesitant to spend that amount of money. And $200 is somewhere in between. So that's one way you can think about these numbers as well. Then here's a good question about like the tech stack. Robin asks about the tech stack for producing what actually goes into an online course. So how do you make these videos? How do you make, how do you record these lessons and things like that? Now, let me say, like, I can give you a quick run through some of the tech I'm using right now to do this live stream, right? So right now I have a Rode USB mic that's mounted right here above me that's recording the audio. And I have a Sony A7 camera recording me. It's plugged into the laptop with a Camlink adapter so that it can act as a webcam. I have two monitors, so I can have my presentation on one screen and I can manage stuff on the other screen. And that's basically, and I have a light here. I have a studio light, a Godox studio light, so that I can have consistent lighting without, the lighting changing because of clouds passing outside and stuff like that. That's the basic tech stack I'm using right now to do this. And this is a tech stack with which you can record really high quality content of all kinds. However, this is something you can arrive at. And, I use this, and I have a whole bunch of other stuff. I have a lot of like video gear and audio gear that I use for different types of content. And it's all good, but I wouldn't recommend that you go out and buy all this stuff to start making a course. First of all, buying, I have built up my gear here over many, many years, and like buying it all at once would just be an insane expense, right? It's like buying it piece by piece over many years is very different. So I don't recommend that you go out and buy all this stuff. My thinking about this is really that it's essentially like skill building. You want to slowly build up the skills for creating content and get familiar with these different tools. And over time, you'll basically let the needs for new gear arise. Because it's like right now, I could do this stream that we're doing right now with this phone here, right? And any phone with a Wi-Fi connection, it's crazy that this is so easy now, right? You can turn on this phone, maybe prop it up against the book or something so it's not shaky. And I could do this whole live stream on that. And I wouldn't have as easy a way to like reference notes or share slides and things like that. So it would probably just be me talking, but that's not a deal breaker, right? You can do that. And I would recommend, so my recommended approach is one that I think of as forward momentum. So you want to be taking action, you want to be moving forward. So if I want to do a video, I record a video on my phone, and I make a video on my phone, and I see what happens. And I let the need for new stuff arise out of that. So maybe I make a video on my phone and I see that, oh, it's all shaky. And then I want a tripod. And then I get a tripod and the phone clamp, and now I can make a more stable video. And then I hear, oh, that's all echoey. It doesn't sound nice. And so I get a better microphone, and I maybe put some panels on the walls or something like that, right? As the need arises, and I start piecing my kit together, always with the priority being, I want to be taking action. I want to be moving forward. I don't want to be sitting here and going, oh, which is the best camera? Should I get this camera or that camera? And before I record my first thing, I have to make sure that I have the best, presentation ready, and I have this ready and that ready. No, take action. Make sure that you're always moving forward and building that skill, because it's a bit tragic to have an amazing stack of tools and no skills to use them, right? Which is where you can easily end up, and you can also use it as like, procrastination by perfectionism, essentially, where you're always thinking, oh, I need something better before I can make a video or before I can record a lesson or something. So again, from my own experience, as an example, the first courses I did, I recorded those on a really crappy camcorder. And back then you couldn't record video on your phone, right? So now I would use a phone and it would look better. So if I started right now, I would use my phone's camera, I would get a tripod and a tripod clamp, and I would use this, and I would stand in front of either a white wall or something just that looks not too distracting, and I would film myself doing that. That's it, right? That's how I would start. Back then I recorded myself on a crappy camcorder, and I created like a white wall background effect by just I had some desk lamps, some like secondhand desk lamps. I screwed some bright bulbs into them, and I just blasted a lot of light at the wall behind me. So it kind of created that white wall look. But it was like very primitive technology, basically, right? And that's how I started. And from there, I slowly built up. So that's really the thing to focus on, right? Don't get too hung up on the tech. Another thing here is also with production and stuff like that. So I like to keep things very, very simple with this. And for the longest time, I used Camtasia to do my screen recording and editing. So Camtasia is like, it does both, right? You can record your screen, so you can record what you're doing on your computer, and you can record slides and stuff. And then you also have a very simple video editor. And I used that for all of my editing. And even it's kind of pricey, so I think it costs like $300 to buy Camtasia. So that's the downside. there's a similar tool called Screencast-O-Matic, which costs like $5 a month or something like that, with which you can do the same thing. You can record your screen and it has a simple editor. And it's the same thing. Look, nowadays, I generally use Adobe Premiere and sometimes DaVinci Resolve to edit my videos, but I wouldn't start there. It's a very complex tool, and I don't want to spend time trying to figure out how to use this thing. You could also, it's like, for example, if you're working on a Mac, you can record your screen using QuickTime. You can record yourself using your phone, and you can bring those two together in, like, what is it called, iMovie or whatever the free video editing thing is called. That's good enough, right? That's good enough. That's where I would start. So again, I'm repeating myself here. The priority is action, right? You want to be taking action. Okay. I think this is one more prepared question, and then we'll get into the questions that you have right now. So this, I think, is also worth addressing. This is a comment that Matthew left on the Thrive Themes website where we posted the videos. I'm building courses on online businesses in a membership format. Do you think this is a bad idea? People sign up for a core course, and then I add bonus courses further down the line. So this is something that I wouldn't recommend for most people. And so here's the thing, right? The best kind of membership, the best kind of recurring subscription type business to have is a software as a service business, such as, an email marketing software, for example, right? Anything like that where people are essentially, it's some critical piece of software that someone needs in your niche, and they pay a monthly basis to get access to this thing hosted in the cloud. That is the really good recurring pricing business model. I think information products, so online courses, essentially, right? Selling information is the least suited to a recurring subscription model, because it basically puts you. So there's first of all, the way we like to think of it is, if I get subscription income, it's like I make more and more money forever, right? And we think about, if I sell a course for $200, I get a customer and I get $200 once. But if I sell a course for, let's say, or I sell my membership for $20 a month, then I get a customer, and after 10 months, I've made the $200, and then I'll continue making $20 a month forever. Unfortunately, that's not true, right? What will happen is that you will have an average customer lifetime value where, on average, a new customer stays around for 3 months or 6 months or something like that. And that will determine how much money you make per customer. So it's not that, it's kind of like selling a course at a one-time price with extra steps, right? And the problem is that with a course, you can basically say, listen, I have this product, it gets you from A to B, give me $200 and you get this information, done. With a membership, you have to keep making stuff to keep people coming back. And the best way to do that, by the way, is to have a community, maybe group coaching, something like that, because otherwise you're just churning and churning and churning content. And that's not a great position to be in. And you're taking away a very important factor that makes a course highly sellable, which is the idea of being outcome oriented. So if you haven't seen this, definitely watch the video we made on how to turn your knowledge into an online course, because this is the most important idea, or I don't know, there are many important ideas, but this is one of the most important ones, is the idea of having an outcome-oriented course, where the thing that people buy is this journey of transformation, right? They're here in one place at the start there, and they want to go step by step to a certain outcome. That's what they're paying you for. And if you can say, listen, I have the best, the best course that gives you all the information that you need and no more to get you there to this thing that you want, to this desirable outcome, that is an easy thing to sell. But if you say, okay, you have to give me $20 a month and I'm just going to keep talking to you about this thing, that's actually a less attractive proposition. And also you have to consider how reluctant most people are to sign up for a recurring anything, right? So you're basically making it doubly hard on yourself, right? You're making it harder on yourself because your conversion rate is going to be much lower. And you're making it harder on yourself because it could be harder to sell a recurring thing than just give me money for this outcome, essentially. But the way to think about this is you have to have a really strong selling proposition for that recurring thing, right? So if you say, look, the real value is being part of this community, the real value is the ongoing coaching or something like that, then it could work out. That's how I would recommend thinking about this. So those are the questions I had written down. Now let me look at the chat here. So now is a good time to ask your questions about how to build a thriving course business, right? The goal here is for anyone who has the knowledge, and for anyone who, especially if you like to teach, right? If you like to teach, if you like to help people via teaching, I think there's a huge opportunity here for you to build what is just an amazing online business. And what I would like to know is, what do you feel is missing, or what would help you achieve that goal? Let's see what we have. And I'm going to scroll up a little bit to see what I missed. Oliver here says, OBS. Yes, you can go to, what is it? Actually, just Google OBS. That's an open source tool that you can use to record your screen, but not edit. Very steep learning curve, but it's a very cool tool. Let's see. So Andrew has a question here. I have a business on the website doing face-to-face IT training. I want to build an online course with everything I know. So, and there's a second part of this question. I bought a domain for the course, but I'm unsure whether to put the course on a new domain or within the existing business. So there's actually two things I want to address here, Andrew. So thanks for this question. So the first is, it's very dangerous to make a course with everything you know. That is the information download trap. So avoid that. People don't want to buy everything you know. People want a specific outcome. And you could, if you try to do everything you know, you'll get stuck in, forever trying to add more to the course. So make sure you start with something that's much more of a specific outcome that a specific target person in your audience, wants. Keep it streamlined, right? You've bought a domain for your course. I'm unsure whether to put the course on a new domain or within the existing business. So in general, I think it's useful to simply have all of your courses in the same place, unless they're in totally different niches, right? So if I make one course about programming and another course about cooking pasta, I probably wouldn't have them on the same. It would make sense to have two different brands there, but that's rarely the case, right? It is, and I've done both. I've had, kind of a separate mini brand, a mini website for every course I've made versus just having courses on the same website. I highly prefer having multiple courses on the same website. And it's for several reasons. One reason is that it saves you a lot of technical setup and headaches and so on, right? It's just easier to say, hey, I have my payment integration, I have my membership thing, I have everything already set up. All I do is add another course versus, oh my God, I have to install a new website and set all this stuff up again from scratch, right? It's just so much extra work. That's one reason. But the other reason is that it is also, there's always this kind of cross-promoting opportunity, right? So if I have, and even if obviously, if I have two courses on essentially the same topic, right? So it's like programming something, some programming language for beginners and then for advanced or whatever. Obviously, everybody who's bought product one is a potential customer for product two. But even if the topics are less directly related, it's like with the courses that we've sold on Thrive Themes, we have different courses. Like one of them, Coursecraft, is about making an online course. Another one is an SEO course. But there's still going to be a lot of overlap. And a lot of the customers who've bought one of these courses and have loved it are going to be happy to buy another course. And it's going to be easier for you and easier for them if that course is just in the same place. So I highly prefer just having everything in one place, basically. Okay. Okay, I can't keep up with the questions right now. Let me see. This looks like a good question from Shane. I understand the use of partners to launch a course, I guess, with a small audience, but how do I build and grow an engaged audience over time? So, yeah, that's what's the short answer to this, right? You build and grow an engaged audience over time by essentially giving people something they need and want and are looking for. And doing that, so think of the overlap between something that people want and need, like a Venn diagram, right? Something people want and need, and something you're uniquely qualified to provide. Because ultimately, this also comes back to what we talked about with competition. Ultimately, you need to have a unique selling proposition for whatever it is that you do, right? You have to have, and the easiest way to think of a unique selling proposition or a unique value proposition is you need to have an answer to the question, why should I buy your thing instead of another thing? And this is why I recommend not selling like generic products, right? Not selling a product that's just like photography 101. That's lame, right? Why should I buy this instead of just like, loads of other generic photography courses? Instead, if it's more specific and it says, food photography for Instagram, right? Take this kind of photo that gets loads of likes on Instagram, right? And it's specifically for food photography, and it's specifically for people who don't have a camera, they only have a phone. And that's what the course is about. And that's like your unique selling proposition, right? It's like, look, you want to take this kind of photograph, it's for Instagram, you don't have an expensive camera, I'm going to teach you how to do this. And that makes it stand out, right? And it makes it stand out to a specific person in your target audience. So that's what you need. And that's what you need to sell a course, but it's also what you need to build and grow an audience. You have to be able to say, listen, I have something specific, I have something unique to offer. I have a slightly different approach to help you get something you want. And what do people want? Generally, we want to achieve some kind of an outcome. We want to, achieve a positive outcome or avoid a pain that we're experiencing, right? So we're suffering and we want that suffering to cease. And we want to be entertained and distracted. And a lot of generally successful audience building happens via content. You're publishing content somewhere, people find that content because they are looking at things and searching for things related to this need that they have of either a positive outcome or avoiding suffering or being entertained and distracted. And successful content usually does both. So it's usually something that people want and need packaged in a somewhat entertaining way, or packaged in a way it doesn't have to be entertaining. Just a lot of popular content is like that, right? It can also be like, oh, here's the most in-depth, most thorough treatment of this kind of thing, right? But essentially, it always has to be a little bit entertaining in the sense it has to be well written, even if it's very serious and scientific. It has to be like easy to consume, basically. And you build an audience by providing this to people on a regular basis, and by tapping into other stuff that's going on. So basically, by collaborating with other creators in your niche, by again, like putting yourself in front of other people's audience in various ways, appearing on podcasts as a guest, collaborating with other people, doing partner launches, anything like that, right? But it's essentially, it always comes down to what is your unique value proposition. And if your unique value proposition is weak, then it's just going to be really hard to make progress, basically. Here's another great question here by Oliver. What is the best duration or course length for a $200 course? So I don't think that there is a best duration. I do think that for $200, like people do basically expect a $200 course to be, let's say, more, to have more content than, a $50 course. However, I do think that ultimately it only comes down to the value you provide in terms of the outcome, in terms of helping people reach the outcome. Because, listen, imagine that there's something you want, right? There's something you want. Someone give me an example of some outcome you want to achieve, right? What comes to mind? If you just think, here's an outcome I want to achieve, give me an example in the chat of that, and I'll riff on that example. Anything like, something that you might buy a course on, or maybe something you bought a course on recently. Typical examples would be something like, I don't know. Like I said, I want to be able to take awesome pictures that get lots of likes on Instagram. Or I want to get Tobias says, become rich with sports betting. Okay. Michael says, I want a job. I want to start a podcast, says James. So these are some good examples, right? So, and let's take start a podcast, right? Let's take start a podcast, where what you want is you want to start a successful podcast. And let's say I sell you a course for $200 on how to start a podcast successfully. Now, if there's only one 5-minute video, you give me $200, you log in and there's one 5-minute video in there. Initially, you'd be like, well, this is bullshit. But what if, just hypothetically, what if you watch that 5-minute video and it's the ultimate aha moment that gives you like this the one secret thing that you needed. And you do that, and like a week later, you have thousands of listeners on your podcast. Would you ask for a refund? And would you wish that it was like 50 videos and 20 hours of total time instead? Like, if I could actually deliver you the one morsel of information that gets you to the outcome you want, you would not regret buying essentially a 5-minute video for $200, right? And this is how to think about it. Now, of course, with information, unfortunately, it doesn't work like that, right? That whatever outcome people want, you can't deliver them in 5 minutes, okay? But in a way, that is unfortunate. Unfortunately, we have to make long courses because there are no such shortcuts in life, right? So I think of it as literally, I want to be very clear about what is the outcome that someone wants to achieve. And I make the course as short as possible and as long as necessary. And Coursecraft itself, by the way, is an example of this, because building a course business is pretty damn complex, right? It's definitely not something you can teach in a 5-minute video. And I try to, in the course, I created the course that I wish I had when I started. I try to cover every single thing you need to know so that you don't, what I hate is when a course gives you like 80%, and then you're like, oh, well, now what, So I really try to address every single thing you need to know in order to build a course business in Coursecraft. And there are, I don't know how many lessons, there's something like 70 lessons or something, right? It's pretty damn long, but it's the shortest possible course. Like, there's no way I could make this any shorter, right? It's the shortest possible path to get you from zero to having a thriving course business. Because I don't want to waste your time. I don't want you to spend your time watching me blab on about something on video. I want to do whatever I can to get you to that outcome, okay? So this is why, don't think about how long should it be, how many videos should I have for $200. People want an outcome. All right. So as short as possible and as long as necessary. Exactly. That's a good thing to keep in mind. Here's a good question. This is like a pretty technical question, but let's briefly address this. So there's the thing I recommend for the kind of tool stack for delivering your online course includes a product called ThriveCart, which is not our product, by the way. They just have a similar name. And indeed, it costs a one-time cost, right? It's a one-time cost of $500 to get Thrivecart. And so the downside is it's a big payment upfront, right? The upside is it's not a recurring payment. And it really does a lot of stuff. For example, sorry, let me. So it comes with a built-in affiliate program, which is pretty important. And it also lets you create products where you have an automatic split between you and the partner, which is also really good. And it has lots and lots of really good features. So it's worth doing. It's worth paying for. But of course, you might be in a situation where it's like you can't afford that much upfront. So there are other options. One option is to use a product called Sendowl, which I believe you can get for $15 a month, I think is like the lower end or the starting plan. So there, obviously, it's much cheaper in the beginning, but then over time, it gets more expensive, right? But they also have like a built-in affiliate program, everything that you'd want in one of these tools. So Sendowl is a good alternative that we also fully integrate with. And another thing that we have an integration with is WooCommerce. And with WooCommerce, you can technically get started for free. And I think our developers built a really good integration with this. The downside is that, realistically, it's not going to stay free. So basically, everybody who uses WooCommerce ends up paying for add-ons, and most of these add-ons come with recurring costs. So with WooCommerce, you can get started for free, but it's likely that you'll end up spending something like $200 a year or something to have all the add-ons that you want eventually, right? So, and maybe you can make it work for free. I'm just saying, like, the reason WooCommerce is so successful is because people always end up needing to pay for these extras, right? Okay. But yeah, so if that's a budget concern, for sure, like I said, what is it, Sendowl or WooCommerce might be a better option. So I'm scrolling through these questions again. To see what is up. Let's see. Oh, that didn't work. Sorry, I just missed. Here. So Timothy has a question here I wanted to show. Should we be going for our tribe of 1,000 and be happy keeping them happy, or could we give our tribe a percentage for referring another buyer? So basically both. So I think that it's very good to focus on like 1,000 true fans, right? And by the way, for anyone who's not familiar with 1,000 true fans, if you just type in 1,000 true fans in your preferred search engine, then you will find a great article by Kevin Kelly, which is just excellent. It's a must-read for an entrepreneur, I think. And it's the idea that thanks to the internet, you can make a really good living as a creator if you have 1,000 true fans. And I think this is a really good thing to focus on. This is always how I've gone about my business, right? I'm not trying to build a business that has like 1 million customers or something like that. I would rather have a business that has like a small group of true fans and basically to have a more intimate relationship essentially with your fans and be more directly involved in like serving your tribe, right? But these two things that you're asking are that they're basically not mutually exclusive. So absolutely have the focus of building 1,000 true fans. I think that's the right focus. And what you're talking about is a referral program, right? So why not have a referral program where you can say, hey, if you recommend this to your friends, you can get a cut of the sales, or you can also have other referral programs. So whatever, you refer people and you get a free T-shirt or something like that. I think making sure that your fans have some extra incentive to tell other people about how much they love your business is always a good idea. So yeah, basically, I would say do both. Okay. let's see. Okay, I'm just still scrolling through the questions here. It's jumping around because people are posting new questions, so it's a bit difficult to keep up sometimes. So here's a question that caught my eye. So, should you use the Thrive suite to create courses? What are the main advantages? Well, basically the Thrive suite, and this is our own product that we're talking about, right? So obviously I think you should use the Thrive suite to create your courses. I also want to say, so in Coursecraft teaches you everything you need to build a successful online course business. And you could use the principles of Coursecraft to build a course business on Udemy or on Skillshare or whatever, something else, right? You could. And maybe that's the choice you want to make. That's no problem. So most of the course it's not about how to use our tools to make an online course. It's about everything else, basically. We do recommend using Thrive Suite. Well, the reason I recommend it is because it's the set of tools that I wished I had when I started out. It has all the things that I had so much trouble finding, or that were much more expensive to get when I started selling courses. And a couple of things, right? You want to have control, and this is one of the things you give up when you go to Udemy or Skillshare or something like that. You give up loads and loads of control. And personally, what I want to be able to have my own website where I can do my own marketing, my own sales pages and so on, where I can build my own mailing list. In the long run, giving up on that is just leaving loads and loads of money on the table. So I wouldn't want to do that. I want to be able to have my own branding, my own unique look and feel for what I'm creating. So it's not just one of a million courses on Udemy and they all look the same, right? That's another thing that in the beginning doesn't make that much of a difference. But if you're serious about building up this business over time, that becomes really important. And one of the interesting things when I talk to course creators is something that all the course creators on Udemy, what they have in common is that they want to leave Udemy, right? It's like I've had this discussion so often with Udemy course creators who are like, yes, okay, I'm making some money here, but I'm so frustrated that I can't set my own prices. They're taking such a huge cut. I don't have my own mailing list. It's so frustrating. How do I get off of this thing? That's really, really common. So I also think of this as like a warning sign. And you want to have control over, you want to be able to make your own affiliate program and be able to, recruit affiliates and give affiliates special bonuses and treatments and so on. If it helps you get big affiliates on board, you want to be able to build your own mailing list. You want to be able to set your own pricing, and so on and so forth, and have this all. It's like the idea of owning the racetrack, right? A lot of other solutions are essentially this, like you're building on rented land, and it's just not a great idea. And you want to own the whole racetrack, and the Thrive Suite gives you the option to do this, and it also lets you. And this is another thing that I found very frustrating. For the longest time, before we had Thrive Apprentice, basically, which is our own course software, basically, that you install on your own WordPress website, I tried so many other solutions. And it's one of the most frustrating things is trying to create an online course area that looks and feels good, right? Where that's easy to navigate. And where your customer is like, okay, this is my course, this is the next lesson, and so on, right? Where it's like easy to make a valuable, because obviously it's mostly about the content, but you also want the course to look and feel good and high quality, and you want it to be easy and you want it to feel good to use this thing. And this was a huge frustration with lots of other solutions I've tried. Lots of like WordPress, LMS solutions are very technical. So they give you like the technical underpinnings for making a course, but then the actual front end user experience is difficult to get right. And I think that Thrive Suite with Thrive Apprentice is the best solution you have for this. So yeah, basically, if you want to own the racetrack and not build your business on rented land, and if you want it to be in your control to set the price for your course, to do the marketing for your course, like, yeah, to actually be able to have your own sales page that you can A/B test and so on. Then, and you want an online course that has your branding and looks and feels good, looks and feels high quality, then I think the Thrive Suite is the best way to do this, right? Originally, we started building this software for our own needs, and specifically for me to be able to, have a better time selling online courses. Things like this, things like whether you have your own sales page and you can A/B test it or not. In the beginning, I was like, I don't know, I wasn't thinking of that, right? Is that really important? In the longer term, this is a huge game changer, whether or not you can do this, right? So that is why Thrive Suite exists, basically. Tanya asks, what is the difference between the Coursecraft course and the Audience from Scratch course? And do you recommend them both, or should I start with one of them first? So personally, I think you should start with Coursecraft, because Coursecraft also includes what I call the zero audience product launch, right, where I basically walk through the strategy I've used and I recommend to basically kickstart your business using an online course. And I think that, look, the audience building course, of course, I think it's great. And it is a very, very thorough treatment on how to build an audience online. But I still personally prefer the approach of building a product first and then building an audience, or using the product to kickstart my audience growth and then doing all the audience building stuff afterwards. I don't think it's a great approach to build an audience first and then think about, what do I sell them, right? So that's all I can say is, so the two courses are totally different. Let me say that, right? There's almost no overlap between these two courses. But yeah, in terms of my personal approach, what's worked for me and what I've favored is to start with a product. Okay. So here's another technical question related to something we've talked about before, right? So what are your thoughts about like Kajabi? And there's others like this. What are they called? Like Teachable, I think, is similar to this, and Podio, something like that. There's a bunch of these that are software as a service online course solutions. And especially Kajabi is like, it's everything. it's everything. And ClickFunnels is another one of those. Everything in one. So my take on this is that it is usually frustrating to use one of these. So it has advantages, which is you definitely have, look, when you build your own stuff, when you own the racetrack, like you have to do a bit more work and you have to understand how the racetrack works and stuff, right? So working with WordPress, working self-hosted, it always has some downsides. The downside of something like Kajabi or a similar platform is, of course, that you're paying them a lot of money every month. And as soon as you stop paying, your entire business gets shut down, right? It's like they have a light switch that shuts your entire business off if you stop paying them. Personally, I don't love that, okay? But also, you have to see that the trade-off for using an all-in-one platform like this is that you're stuck with their feature set. You're stuck with what they've built, right? What you can do, and this is the reason I love WordPress so much, is like you can use, Thrive Apprentice to build your online course. And then maybe there's something very specific that you want in your course. Maybe you want, maybe it's about mathematics and you want to be able to display mathematical formulae in your course. Well, guess what? It's WordPress. You can get a plugin for displaying mathematical formulae, install it, and it'll work, right? It's like whatever you need, you can plug it in and create the solution you need. Well, if you're on a solution like Kajabi, then you can ask the support team, hey, can I have this feature? And they're probably going to say, no, sorry. And that's it. You're stuck with that, right? There's nothing you can do. So that is usually the downside, right? You're locked in, and you're stuck with what they can offer you. And what's very often the case is that, it sounds great. Oh my God, it's everything. Even the email marketing is included. But you'll find that, look, it's very difficult to make a really good email marketing software. And it's very difficult to make a really good online course software. And these all-in-one systems are usually very frustrating at least some of these aspects, right? You'll find like, oh, I have to deal with this really mediocre email marketing feature here. So just be real about the trade-offs, basically, right? Like I said, using WordPress and using the Thrive suite is not completely free of trade-offs. It's not like everything is going to be sunshine and rainbows. The downside is that it is self-hosted. You have to, you have to have your own hosting. You have to do your own, basically you can break stuff, right? You can break stuff. And this happens a lot on WordPress, right? People install 15 plugins. There's some conflict somewhere, things break. If you're on a hosted platform, that usually doesn't happen. And if it happens, it's someone else's problem. If it happens on WordPress, it's your problem. So there are downsides there too, for sure. Let's see. Someone's doing challenge 44. Mike, greetings from challenge 44, day 12. Okay, you made it to 12 days. It's good. At one point, is this living hell? Should I include course material? At any point. What matters is that you make a content piece every day. That's it. At any point, you can create course content for sure. Here's a great question by Kevin. Should I focus on reselling one course over and over, or sell lots of courses to the same small audience? This is a great question. So both is possible, but let me put it like this. If you create, 15 courses, you will find that the 80-20 principle comes into play. You will find that 80% of your money comes from like one or two of those courses. And your time is probably better spent marketing those one or two courses to a wider audience, basically, pushing on the flywheel that's already working. It's probably a better use of your time than making more new products that are going to have fewer sales. So that's something to keep in mind. That's very likely going to happen. Making lots of different products can be a good way for basically discovery, right? For discovering what works. And also, look, I also have to say, right, obviously I've made lots of different products, and part of the reason for this is just I have a need to create things, and I get bored if I just sell the one product over and over again. So I have a need to create things, and so that's also a reason to do it, right? But it's not always like, in terms of business and strategy, is not always like the best choice to just make more stuff. So to me, it's like that there's a couple of reasons to make multiple courses. One is to build your skill, build your course creation skill. One is to discover those 20% of things that make 80% of the money, because you can't really expect that you'll hit that right away. So discovery is good. And another is to have, so there is also the aspect of kind of the upsell and cross-sell. So even if you have that one course that makes all your sales, it still makes sense to have like a follow-up course or something where you can cross-sell, even though it's not going to make as much money as this one. At some point, you also, like, if you just have the one thing and you just sell the one thing, you also reach a point of marginal return. So like, let me put it this way, the theoretically best thing to do would be to start with, to basically somehow know the thing that's going to be the one that has the highest demand, makes the most sales. You start with that and you focus all your time on selling that to more people, growing your audience until you hit the marginal returns part of the curve, right? So where it's like, okay, now extra time spent marketing this is not leading to as much of an increase in results. And then you make a second product that you can sell to this existing audience, right? In practice, it's never going to be that elegant, right? In practice, it's more likely that you'll make a few courses until you find that winner. And then, it's already messier than what I described. But in theory, that's what it would look like, I think. Oh, this is a great one. Gord asks, what about doing a live cohort like beta course launch, whereby people get in early at a lower price, but you benefit from their direct participation to shape the course? I love this. Okay, I love this. And let me also say, this is how I've developed many courses. And in fact, the first version of Coursecraft was developed like that, right? Where I pre-sold it, and then I was building out the lessons and modules while people were going through. And that helped me like steer in different directions. And the course did turn out different because of that, right? I don't think I could have made the course as good as it is if I had just made it all first and then released it, right? So this is exactly what I did with Coursecraft, and I've done this with other courses too. I really like this approach. So yeah, great approach. And also there is great value in doing like cohort style courses, right? Where even with an existing course, you can launch it in cohorts where you can say, okay, we're going to do a launch. You'll get a bunch of people in and they all go through it at the same time. And you have maybe some community aspect, or you have, so something I've done is, there'll be like a weekly call, and everyone on the call is like at the same stage of going through the course at that point. That can also be great. And this is also something where in Thrive Apprentice, we'll build some more features that are made around this idea. But yeah, that's a really good approach. And yes, this is something I also cover in the Coursecraft course, yes. All right. Okay, so I'll do one more. We've been here for more than an hour. I don't want this to go on for too long, although I hope you find it useful. I'm having fun, obviously. I like talking about this stuff. I'm sure you can tell. So let me try and find one more question here. Let's see. There's loads of questions, which is really great. It's great to see this level of engagement. Well, thank you very much. Yes, it's good. It's good to be back. Yeah. So let me take this one. What are my thoughts on dripping course content versus delivering the course as a single block? So here's my take on this. I think that dripping course content without a cohort is not that great. I think that when people buy a course, if there's not a group of other people that are going through it at the same time, I think that dripping the course content in general, it doesn't make for a significantly better experience. And a lot of people like to have the freedom to skip around or go through it at their own pace, right? So look, I haven't done much experimentation with this, so maybe there's something here that I'm missing. I also want to say, right, I haven't tried everything under the sun. What I can say is I've had great success with courses that people simply buy, and you can buy them anytime, and then you buy it and you get the whole thing. That has worked great for me. And I've also had great success doing cohort launches where a group of people all go through it at the same time. And there you have a drip. So it's like, okay, this week we have this module, right? Next week we have the next module. And everybody is going through it at the same time and goes on live calls and so on at the same time. So this is a higher investment, right? It takes more of your time, takes more effort to do this. But I think in terms of outcomes, this is probably the best, right? It's almost a combination between coaching and courses. In terms of the outcomes you can help your customers achieve, this is probably the best approach to have. Okay, let's hide this again. Okay, so with that, let's bring this to an end. As you know, right now, you can still get Coursecraft. It's not available very often. So right now you can get in on Coursecraft, and you can go to thrivethemes.com/Coursecraft, all one word after the / /Coursecraft, right? thrivethemes.com/Coursecraft. That's where you go to get in right now. It's something like $300 off or something like that. And it's about to run out as well. It's not going to be open for much longer. If you are serious about turning your knowledge into an online course business, Coursecraft is the absolutely best thing I could make based on more than 10 years of experience selling online courses and also selling all kinds of other stuff online. It is the best thing I could create. And it is, look, for anyone who's not familiar with my style, right? The stuff I do is like the furthest thing you can imagine from like your get-rich-quick overnight business-in-a-box bullshit. And I just want to be very clear about that. It also says this on the sales page. This is not a business opportunity. I'm not selling you an easy way to make millions, okay? Everybody else is already doing that. I don't need to add to this noise. It's not that. If anything, Coursecraft is for people who are fed up with that, okay? If you're fed up with loads and loads of gurus trying to sell you garbage, overpriced garbage in this space, and you're like, actually, I don't. It's like if you've matured beyond just dreaming about, I'll find some trick to make millions of dollars in a weekend, right? If you're like, hey, actually, I'd like to build a real business. How about that? And you find that it's kind of difficult to get good guidance on this, then Coursecraft is for you. And I encourage you to check it out. Like I said, thrivethemes.com. Oh, Matt also just posted the link here in the chat. thrivethemes.com/Coursecraft. I would love to see you in there. And basically, I think it's the best thing you can get for learning how to build a course business. So that's it. That's my call to action. I hope to see you inside. Thank you for joining, and let's do this again sometime soon. Thanks for joining the stream, and thanks for all your questions.